Hi, it's Dorothy Guining with Scrapbooking Quebec. This week I'm joining the Punched Out Thursday to Die For collaboration. We share ideas every Thursday on what to do with your punches and your dies. I'm going to put links to Roni's, Kathy's, and Krista's channels below, so be sure to check out what they're up to this week. I'm going to be creating the layout you see on the screen, and I will be making all of those embellishments with tools from my stash. So here's what I'm going to be using. That paper collection comes from Creative Memories. It's called Time Worn Texture. I also have foil paper from Stampin' Up, some thickers, and some journaling cards. Here are the tools that I'll be using. I'll talk more about them throughout the process. I'll also put a list of them in the description box below. And I'll also try to suggest some substitutes in case you don't have all of these obscure tools that I have on my desk, or some of them are obscure. Here's what I have on my desk. I'm going to show you this paper from Creative Memories. Now, the color is perfect, the motif is perfect for what I'm doing, but it's really, really thin, and I haven't worked with paper this thin in a long, long time. Here are the 3 photos I trimmed and matted in advance. I'll put measurements for everything I'm doing on the screen. And as for this foundation page, now normally I would have just used that printed paper, but it was so thin I had to back it in cardstock. And because I was backing it in cardstock and I knew that I would be placing a large border at the bottom of the page, I cut a chunk of it out. But for the purpose of this video, the foundation page on the screen, the measurement is going to be 12 by 12. I also have a basket full of tools on my desk, and like I said, I will try to suggest substitutes when possible. And I have a tray full of bits and pieces. Now, when I was preparing for this video, I was playing with my tools and I wanted to create a castle. So this is what I came up with. And the reason why I'm showing you is because the page I'm doing here today is about a castle, a 15th century castle in Ireland. So what I'm doing is kind of old world travel. But the page I'm showing you right there is kind of fun, joyous colors. So it could be a princess party or something like that. Anyway, I wanted to show it to you simply to let you know that if you don't have old world travel photos, you could still do this page by simply switching up the colors, that's all. What you see me doing right now is continuing to prepare my foundation page. So I cut out that gray paper as well as 2 narrow strips of black paper. So I'm creating a large border and I'm going to cover up that white space at the bottom of my foundation page. And on that border, that's where I'm going to place 2 photos. And in the middle of that is where my journaling is going to go. I put the photo, the main photo, the focal point in the top right on the page. And now I want to fill in that spot between those 2 photos at the bottom. So I have these journaling cards. They're from My Mind's Eye from the Heritage Collection. But I'm having a hard time selecting, to be perfectly honest, because I do know I'm going to be creating this big castle at the top of my page, and it's going to have quite a visual impact. And that probably will influence my selection of journaling cards. So basically I narrowed it down to 3. I'm filling in that spot with a black piece of cardstock, and it's going to be like a photo mat for my journaling box, but I'll worry about filling in the journaling box area until after my embellishing is mostly done. So now what I'm going to do is start creating the castle. And I do recommend you watch the order in which I cut my pieces because it can help you save paper. So what I'm getting out right now is the border maker system from Creative Memories, and I have the notebook border punch here. So I'm cutting that down along a 12-inch strip of paper. And then what I'm going to do is cut it at 4.5 inches. And with that strip of paper, 4.5 by 12 inches, I'm going to be able to create my entire castle. So once I cut that down, I'm going to cut the main body of my castle. So I'm going to cut that at 5 inches long, and it's already 4.5 inches wide. Now what I'm going to do is put it on its side, cut it on its length, and the side that has the notebook border top, I want that entire length to be 2.5 inches. Then I'm going to cut it at 3 inches, and that's going to be the top part of my castle. And with the long strip of paper that is left, it doesn't have a notebook on it at all. I cut that down at 1¼ inches. And that strip, I cut it in two. One of them's 5¼ inches, and the little bit that's left over. Those two strips are going to be the towers on my castle. And I'm going to place it on this black cardstock just to let you know how I plan to build the castle. Now, as you can see, it's all towards the left-hand side. That's because it's going to kind of bleed off the left-hand side of the page. What I put on top of those towers were two little pieces. Basically, it's the negative piece that came out of the border maker punch, and each one of them had 4 little balls on top, so I cut off one of them. So each one of those strips I'm going to put at the top of my towers on the castle. And what I'm doing right now is simply putting black ink around all the edges, because the papers are kind of tone on tone, and especially with that print, you won't see the different pieces of the castle. So it helps to add ink. If you do not have a notebook border punch, what I would do in this case is simply take a small circle punch and punch along that 12-inch strip of paper, then slice the top part of it off so there's like half circles, or you could do the same thing with a small square punch. What you saw me do right there was take a small tag punch, and I punched out a door, then I cut it in half. That one there is from Stampin' Up. And right now what I'm using is something, a really old punch called a geometric punch. So the side I'm using punches out 3 strips of paper. I did it 3 times in the foil paper and 3 times in the black paper. What I'm going to do, what I could have done is taken a 1-inch square punch, but I found my square punch too tight. So I'm taking a 1-inch square die and I'm cutting out all of these little pieces that I cut. So basically it's going to give me a square with some slats. I'm only going to cut it out on camera in the foil paper once and in the black paper once, because I want to show you what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to layer up the squares one on top of the other, but they're going to be kind of crisscrossed, and that's going to create my window. So I'm going to make 2 more of those. Now this is another die. This one here is new from Stampin' Up. It's called Forever Flourishing dies, and I'm cutting this out in the foil paper, and basically I cut one out on camera and I end up doing 2 more off camera. So I just want to talk a little bit about substitutions here. If you do not have a tag punch for a door, well, you can use any tag punch, number 1. You could also use a label punch or any other tag punch, like I said. For those windows there, if you don't have a geometric punch, just make squares. You could have a square punch or just simply cut out a square. And as for those flourishing dies, obviously you may not have those, but any bunch of leaves will do. And if you have a small leaf punch, just cut out a bunch of them and create a bouquet of leaves. So as you can see, I'm putting together my castle. And when I position the door, you can see the tower at the top is not quite to the far left of the page. So what I did was I positioned my door so that it fell directly underneath that tower. The door is cut in 2, but later on I'll come in and add some doorknobs to it. I'll do that actually towards the end of the video. And now I adhered the 3 windows. And as you can see, the one on the far left kind of bleeds off the page as well. I just cut myself a little narrow strip of black paper to come out of that tower on the right, and I cut out a little flag. That's a little flag punch from Stampin' Up. I didn't adhere it to the page right now. I end up coming in later on. As you can see, I got out my title, Donegal Castle, and those were from a thicker collection called Twilight, I think. Anyway, I put my title on wax paper so I could play around a bit with positioning. I end up going with the title kind of justified on the right, and I'm also playing around a bit with those flourishing leaves as well as the journaling box. So I end up having those leaves come out from the top of my focal point photo, the top right. Then it kind of comes out underneath the focal point photo down towards the journaling box, and I have another one of those bouquets of leaves coming out from underneath the journaling box at the bottom. So basically I have these cascading leaves kind of on a diagonal going through the focal point photo down through the journaling box. So as you can see, I did select a journaling box. The adhesive you see me using right now is called Sticky Specs by Ecstasy Crafts, and I have this love-hate relationship with it. It's really messy to use, but it does the job. Basically, it's good for adhering very detailed pieces. You put the piece on the wax paper, it picks up the adhesive, and then you can adhere your piece wherever you want. As you can see, I'm putting that flag out of that tower, and basically I popped it up on foam adhesive, and I went into the alpha pack and I just found myself a little cross there. It looked kind of medieval, so I put that on the flag. And as you can see, I'm putting doorknobs on my doors, and what I used there was this really tiny punch from Stampin' Up. It's got a little circle and almost like a little petal on it. It was part of a flower building kit at one point, so I ended up using the little petals. Now I'm coming back in. Basically, I set my page aside. I thought I was finished, but I felt with the black in the top right with the title, I felt I needed another visual triangle. And I did select this tool, to be perfectly honest, when I was selecting tools, and I never used it. Again, it's another cartridge from the Creative Memories border maker system. It's called the Fence Punch or something like that. Anyway, I cut it out. I ended up tucking it under the border, just underneath that castle. So that gives me another stronger hit of black in the opposite corner from the title. And then I did another one underneath the photo in the bottom right. Anyway, that's my video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to Scrapbooking Quebec if you haven't already. If you have, thank you very, very much. Don't forget to check out the other participants. Their links are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.